Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. Today we're going to look at the Remco MiniMonsters. Last episode we looked at the Remco 9-inch Universal Monster figures. Like this one. So we talked about these guys last episode. This episode, we're going to look at the sister series to that one, the MiniMonsters. Let's have a quick recap. Remco was a company founded in the 40s. They made mostly vehicles and walkie-talkies and remote-controlled toys, battery-operated stuff. Remco stands for Remote Control Remco. And then in the 60s, they started doing licensed toys like Monsters, Addams Family, Lost in Space. And then they filed for bankruptcy in 1971, and in 74 they were purchased by Azrak Hamway International. And Ahai, of course, made these beautiful little guys, the Azrak Hamway Super Monsters. So Azrak Hamway made that Universal Monsters set in the mid-70s, and they did own Remco. That was right after they purchased Remco. So they could have put them out as Remco toys, but they didn't. In the 70s, Azrak Hamway International tended to use their Ahai brand for rack toys, lower-end stuff. And then the somewhat higher-end toys, they put out under the Remco name. Then in 1980... that's when we saw these guys. They made this line of Universal Monsters figures. And in 1981, they put out the MiniMonsters, which were 3 3/4 inch, kind of like the Kenner Star Wars figures, 3 3/4 inch figures, which were more compatible with the popular figures of the day because the Mego format was really dying out by then. The format that ruled the toy market was the 3 3/4 inch size. So wisely, that's what Ahai Remco decided to do with the MiniMonsters, to make them compatible with Star Wars figures and all the similar kinds of little figures that were popular at that time. So let's look at one. Here is the creature from the Black Lagoon. Let's see if he looks okay. Is there any glare on him? I think he's all right. I think it's okay. All right, so there it is. Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now that figure is from the initial release of the MiniMonsters, and it is a non-glowing figure. It does not glow in the dark. And you can see there's nothing on the card about glowing in the dark. And the figure itself is green, non-glowing plastic. And let's take a look at the back. Will he stand up or will he not? Well, I'll just hold him. So there's the back. It shows all of the ones in the set. And interestingly, there wasn't a first, second, third series with the characters. There were some differences in some running changes in the line that we'll talk about. But from what I can tell, they put out all 6 characters at the same time. Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy, Frankenstein, Phantom of the Opera, and Creature. They put them all out at the same time. And they didn't save some for a second series. They just put them all out. And on the back it says, collect the whole creepy crew of Universal Film Monsters. All posable and ready for action. Count Dracula, the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Frankenstein monster, The Phantom of the Opera, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And now on the back, on this card it says 1980 Remco Toys. So the copyright says 1980, but everything I've ever read about these indicates they were put out in 1981, and they're in the 1981 Remco catalog. So even though it says 1980 on the card, I'm not sure that they were actually out in 1980. For instance, there's in the big figures, there are boxes that say Ideal. I didn't talk about, I neglected to mention this in the last episode. There are boxes that say Ideal instead of Remco. And the toys, I think, are identical, but the back of the box, instead of having the artwork of the monster going on his little adventure and the little story about what he's doing and how he finds another monster and hugs him, those cute little stories that are on the back of the US boxes, the Ideal boxes, which were European, have just a solid color. I think it's blue or something. It's just solid color on the back. And those Ideal boxes, they have a different copyright date. I think it's, I don't know if it's 78 or 79. I think it's 78. I've never owned one, so I don't know for sure. But it's earlier than the 1980 date on the Remco boxes. Now, I think the Ideal boxes were available in the UK. I don't know if they were available in other parts of Europe. I think they're UK boxes. I could be wrong. I don't have a lot of knowledge about the Ideal boxes. One reason I didn't bring them up last time. But they're the same toys, and they were put out at the same time. The 1980 Remco and the Ideal boxes with the earlier date were put out at the same time, as far as I know. So why do the Ideal boxes have an earlier date? I don't know. Could be a date of copyright. Maybe they copyrighted them or trademarked the toys and then put them out a year or two later. Not sure. So let's look at this toy. For a 3 3/4 inch toy, this is pretty darn good. The recent Reaction Super 7 Universal Monster figures, the creature for that set looks more film accurate, I think. At least the head does. The head looks more like the creature's head in the movie. The body, though, I don't know that the Reaction body looks all that much better than this Remco body. I think this Remco body is pretty darn good, considering that it's a 3 3/4 inch format. I mean, those hands are really adorable, really cute hands. His feet are cute. Everything is just, and he's just cute. And he looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon. I mean, it looks like the creature's body. He's got all the back fins on his arms and his back and on the back of his legs. And now his head isn't quite film accurate, but look at the Kenner Star Wars figures. My gosh, those wouldn't get released today. The first figures really for the original Star Wars and then Empire Strikes Back, all of those, they don't even look human, let alone look like the actors. They're very, very crude, very toy-like. By Return of the Jedi, they were starting to get a little more sophisticated with the design. But even through Return of the Jedi and all the rest of those 80s Star Wars toys, they all look very, very toyish and not like the modern standard of trying to make them actually look like the actors or like the movie characters. So you gotta take everything in the context of its time. And in the context of 1980 or 81, this little creature looks pretty darn good. And being molded in this dark green plastic really makes the detail stand out, so you can really appreciate the sculpt, which I point out because you're going to see in a moment, they're not all like that. And this creature portrait, I mean, all these cards look beautiful, but this black and white creature portrait is just great. that's a movie image. It's not painted, as far as I know. It looks like it's taken from a photograph. And all these things have movie images on the cards. I'll get more into the cards later. Remco Universal City Studios Creature from the Black Lagoon is just a really interesting style. Just the graphic style of these things. And I think this kind of stuff gets overlooked because we are so used to seeing these, we kind of forget. But just look how there's no scary, spooky monster writing. It's not like jagged letters. It's not trying to be spooky. What is this style? And the big figures are like this too. What is going on with that very matter-of-fact kind of a style where, let's take a look here. I mean, look at the graphic style on that, and the way the name is written. I mean, it's just, there's nothing scary or spooky about it. I mean, it's the 80s. These are 80s toys. These aren't like 60s or 70s trying to be like the 60s. That whole kind of spooky haunted house thing is over. We're in a different era. And these things reflect that. Okay, so now let's look at an alternative to what we just saw. That was a non-glowing creature, which is the way they put them out originally. And then I said there weren't like a first series, second series kind of thing with the characters. They just put all the characters out at once. But there are different series in terms of the materials they were made of, the figures, and the design of the cards. The character selection stayed the same. The sculpt stayed the same. But the kind of plastic and paint that's used and the design of the card art changed. And here's the big change right here. Now that is a winter green creature from the Black Lagoon. If you suck on him, put him in your mouth, he actually tastes like spearmint. He has kind of a Christmassy sort of flavor. Yes, these were edible. But you only could lick him so many times before you just went ahead and just went crunched into him and ate him. Actually, this is a glow-in-the-dark creature. So after that initial series, all of them were non-glow, and then they put them out all as glow-in-the-dark versions. Now, this one's unique because he's made of glow-in-the-dark plastic. The entire figure glows in the dark. And you see now he has a little logo there. Kind of like the Aurora logo from the old days. That he glows in the dark. And then we all know that yellow is the official color of glow-in-the-dark. Anytime you have a glow-in-the-dark sticker, logo, whatever, it's going to have to be yellow. If it's not yellow, then it better be some kind of a green, but not a dark green, kind of a yellow green. So here we're looking at this little guy. He's really cute, but the detail on the sculpt is just, you can't see it because of the plastic, this light colored plastic. You can't make out the detail in the sculpt. Compared to the non-glowing creature, you really can't tell if this creature looks like the movie character or not because you just can't see the detail well enough. I mean, it's cool that he glows in the dark. That's a neat feature, but it kind of obliterates the sculpt and the details. I don't know as a kid how I'd feel about a light-colored creature like this. Like, it's cool that he glows in the dark, but would I like it being all light, this very, very light green? I don't know if I'd like that or not. But I mean, it's a cool toy, just the same. And his bubble in both of these that I've shown you so far, the bubbles are not yellowed one bit. I don't think that's the case with all we're going to see. These bubbles are crystal clear, so I'm impressed with that. Let's see here. It still says 1980. 1980 Remco toys. The back looks the same. I think there's no change whatsoever in the back. Same back. Same photo, same text, same copyright date. Same toys, including dark colored creature, the non-glow creature, which is not what this looks like. Same artwork on the front, except for the glow-in-the-dark circle up there. And just for old time's sake, here's the two of them. And that's the biggest difference in the set between glow and non-glow. Now here is a glow mummy. And this illustrates another difference. So if there are like a first, second, third series, it's non-glow, then glow, and then the starburst design. And you'll see what I'm talking about right now. Look at that. That's different. You see the other glow creature here doesn't have that starburst. But after issuing them in glow without that starburst, they thought they needed a little extra oomph. So they changed the cars to make that glowing aura around them. And I see he's orange behind the figure, and then yellow, and then green on the rays coming out. So he's got quite a spectrum of glow power there. And once again, the bubbles crystal clear. Because these are kind of notorious for yellowing, these bubbles, but not the three I've shown you so far. So that's good. The glow-in-the-dark logo at the corner is still the same. Still says 1980. Same figures on the back. Let's just for the record, let's just show you the back of the Starburst Glow card. Exactly the same. I don't think there's any difference here. So this mummy, he's really cute. All these are really cute. This is a cute line of toys. And even though he's only 3 3/4 inches, he looks like Boris Karloff. I mean, given the format, given the size, he actually does. You can see Boris Karloff in that sculpt. It's definitely Imhotep, Boris Karloff. It's not Lon Chaney Jr. or Tom Tyler. It's not Caris or Karis. It's not Claris. It's Imhotep. But the card art is Ardith Bay, and you can even see his fez a little bit of it up there. He's wearing a fez, so that's Ardith Bay, who I guess is like the secret identity, the alias of Imhotep in the present day. He calls himself Ardith Bay and tries to pass for human. That's interesting that they would use Ardith Bay for the artwork and not, like trying to get that still of Imhotep in his sarcophagus going like this. Maybe they considered that it just didn't work on the card, whereas this photo of Ardith Bay with the head angled the right way, looking the right way, just worked with the design of the card and the figure here. But it's interesting, because if you know what it is, you can see the fez. And as a kid, I was just coming out of childhood at this time. I was going into adolescence. I had the big figures as a kid, and I played with them. But I remember these came out just a little later, and by then I was not playing with toys anymore. Or I had just stopped. So my memory is that these little figures came out after the big ones. Whatever, any dates, any catalogs or whatever. I remember the big ones, and then I remember a year or more later seeing the little ones. But I remember I did see this card in the store, and I remember saying, that's not the mummy, that's Ardith Bay. that's not his mummy form, that's his human form. So even at that time, I knew what this was. I knew it was Ardith Bay on the card, even back then. As did any other kid who was into monsters. They would have all known this Ardith Bay. So that's a nice little 3 3/4 inch mummy. Glows in the dark with that starburst design around the bubble. All right. Now, I neglected to mention that, yeah, that mummy is made of glow plastic, so that entire figure glows. The entire figure glows, but it's not that green color that the creature is. So it's pretty much a gray mummy. And the non-glowing mummy looks pretty much the same. There's not a lot of difference in the color. And really, for most of these, there isn't a lot of visual difference between glow and non-glow. You really can't tell easily looking at them loose whether they're glow or non-glow. It's not obvious. If you have them next to each other, maybe then. And of course, if you put them in the dark, then you can tell. But when they're not on the card, it's hard to tell whether you're looking at a glow or a non-glow version, except for the creature where it's very obvious. All right, so here is the Wolfman. There he is, the Wolfman. Now his bubble is yellow. The plastic on the bubble has aged and turned yellow, which most of the ones you find out there are yellow. The bubbles have yellowed on most of these cards. It's unusual to find bubbles that are still clear. So there is the Wolfman. He is the Lon Chaney Jr. Wolfman. And you see the card art is Lon Chaney Jr. It's a still, a movie still. And he's glow in the dark. He's got the little logo there. But the figure itself, you really can't tell it's glow in the dark. There's nothing about the color of the plastic or the paint that would indicate it's glow in the dark. And it is just the face that glows in the dark. Yeah, it's just his face. Nothing else. His face glows in the dark. No other part of him glows in the dark. And it's not glow plastic, it's glow paint. The paint glows in the dark. And you can see that the photo that they're using is the very famous one where the Wolfman's going like this, got kind of like a death coffin, almost like that Egyptian pharaoh kind of pose, like that. It's a famous still because you can see his hand in the corner here. It's reaching up. Let's see. So they spell Wolfman as one word. Now, of course, the official Universal Studios officially sanctioned way of spelling that name is with 2 words, Wolfman. And it's still 1980, card art is the same, no change. So looking at this little guy, he's pretty cute, he's pretty cool. And I think I might prefer this toy to any of the Super 7 versions of him. Whether it's the Funko one or the later one that Reaction put out on their own with the current line. I'm not too crazy about the Wolfman that they made in either of those sets. I think I like this one more. And it looks like he's got a brown or black nose. can't tell with the naked eye. I don't know if that's just paint wear or if it's deliberately painted that way. Always when I'm editing this stuff, I can finally see the details because I take my iPhone and do close-up video of these toys, and I can see details that I can't see as I'm looking at them with the naked eye. You know, I could try a magnifying glass. I don't know if that's going to do any good. I'm just curious, is his nose painted or is it just wear? Now, even with the magnifying glass, I can't really tell. Yeah, I'm inclined to think it's just wear from the nose coming in contact with the inside of the bubble. I don't think they painted it to be dark. Okay, so let me get these out of the way, because we need to talk about this Wolfman in particular. He's really cool, and yeah, I do see Lon Chaney Jr. in that sculpt. I mean, he has that kind of that look of I don't know how to describe it. It's a kind of tortured look. There's something, he doesn't look comfortable or in charge or confident, or he looks like he's uncomfortable and out of control and kind of scared. He's got that kind of look which Lon Chaney Jr. had as the Wolfman. So let's look at this. So we haven't had, so hopefully I won't knock everything over here. So we haven't really talked about him very much. Oh great, I just moved my stand. Whatever, we'll figure that out later. Okay, so he's too big for this camera. So here's this thing. This was made by Mortar Heads. This is a bust. And this, it's made of latex. This is a blown up version of this little Wolfman. It's his head. It's the head for this toy, blown up big. So this is a replica of the head for this figure. And he also made the creature from the Black Lagoon, the Remco MiniMonster creature in the dark green plastic, in this big version. And I don't remember which one he said he was going to do next. I think maybe the Phantom. I'm not sure, but he is proceeding with another one, and he'll probably do the whole set, I imagine, in time. I don't know if I'm going to buy the whole set. I kind of like the creature. I liked this one. I think he really captured the toy and captured the character too. It's a great likeness of the action figure, and it's a great realization of the character, even if the toy didn't exist. But what I was just saying about the kind of the pathos in Lon Chaney Jr.'s face as the Wolfman that most toys just don't capture. The little figure, I think, does. You do see that in that sculpt. And I think that's reflected here, because you also see it in this big one. Since it's a replica of the little toy, it captured that quality as well. And it's got like the seam from the plastic, where the mold seam is sculpted onto this. I mean, he tried to capture all the little details to look like you took one of those little figures and just blew it up big, like shot it with some kind of a sci-fi ray gun that enlarged things and made it big. So this is a unique item, and I thought it was something appropriate for the set on the show. There's something emblematic of it. Like whatever the show is about, whatever I'm trying to do with this series, I think is somehow kind of summed up in this item. Just the fact that it even exists, and that someone took the time to try to create something like that. So now I move my little stand. Okay, so there's the Remco Wolfman. This is the glow-in-the-dark version, but no starburst. And there really isn't a lot of difference in appearance between the glow and the non-glow. If you had them side by side, you could probably tell the colors a little bit different, but it's not drastic. And that's the case with all these. The glow and non-glow, once you get away from the creature, really doesn't look different. The difference is minor. The creature is the only one where it really is obvious. And these are in no particular order. Like I said, they all came out at the same time, as far as I know. All the characters, that is. Okay, here's a Frankenstein, and he's a glow version, and his bubble's yellow. I think, well, I don't know. Half of mine have these yellow bubbles and half don't. Now, I've had these MiniMonsters since the 90s. I've had all these since the 1990s, like the mid-1990s. So I've had all these a long time. I haven't bought a Remco monster toy, gosh, this century. I don't think I bought one this century. I think they're all from the 1990s, all of them in my collection. So here's the Frankie. And we have a beautiful Boris Karloff movie still on the card. That looks like the Bride of Frankenstein version of the monster, with his scars and his forehead clamps showing. In the toy itself, I probably would be imagining things to say I could see Boris Karloff in that sculpt. Actually, it looks almost like Glenn Strange, if nothing else. But I don't know if it's really intended to look like any particular actor. I sort of see Karloff, but I kind of see Glenn Strange. But I'll say this, it is a classic Universal Monsters Frankenstein, and it captures the character. It has this gothic, sad, gaunt appearance. It's a kind of a spooky, eerie looking Frankenstein. It's cute because it's little and it's cute, but it still has kind of a scary quality. It has a serious look, and his head is up, and he's sleepy. I like sleepy Frankensteins. He's got that chin tilted up and sleepy eyes, and his hands are turned, so if you put his arms up, they'll be like this. And you can see the scars on his wrists where his hands were stitched on. And thank goodness he has a black jacket. All the good classic Frankenstein toys have black jackets. Not like the awful, stupid, abominable green jacket. Oh boy, I should do a show on just the green Frankenstein jacket. I was going to say Dracula. It's as evil as Dracula. That jacket and Dracula, same evil. I should do a show just on that horrible, evil green Frankenstein jacket. Whew. Thank goodness these old classic toys were not burdened by the lunacy of the Universal licensing department, insisting that Frankenstein's jacket be green. Although I see that his vest or sweater, whatever you want to call his jumper, I see that's green. It appears to be green. So that's green, but the jacket's black, thank goodness. And yeah, I see how, kind of like some of the Star Wars figures, his jacket extends below his waist where his leg joints are. So the sculpt is interrupted by the joint and then continued after the joint. So that's kind of interesting. There's like a stylistic characteristic of this format of 3 3/4 inch figure, that they just sort of accept certain things, that like the jacket separating and then a gap and then continuing again. Just a weird observation. It's very idiomatic of the 3 3/4 inch format at this time, that you see a lot of toys that have that. And all of these things have 5 points of articulation: their neck, their shoulders, their hips. So their neck moves, their shoulders, their arms move, and their legs move. And that's it. Just like a Star Wars figure or the Adventure People. The Adventure People, though, had ball and socket joints in their necks so that their heads could go up and down. So they had that on the Star Wars figures. Star Wars figures just move like that. I see his boots are not that big. He's got kind of small boots for a Frankenstein. You would have thought maybe they give him more massive looking boots, but I kind of like it. All these toys, the legs look a little out of proportion. Their legs look slightly small. The legs and the feet look a little smaller than they should. But that's kind of a stylistic thing. It, again, makes them kind of cute. It makes them of their time. So his face glows, and I don't know if his hands glow or not, but his head glows. He's got nice grayish green skin, not too green, not stupid looking green, just green enough. It's really a nicely done figure. He's got his scar and his electrodes, all the things you want in a Frankenstein figure. All the things you want and none of the things you don't want. Let's see here. Let's keep going. All right. Next we have, the evil Dracula. Bum, bum, bum. And his bubble is yellowing. But it's yellowing where it meets the card, not really in front of the figure, just like where the glue is, gluing it to the card's yellow. And he's 1980, back's the same. Okay, there he is. There is Dracula. And again, for the format, 3 3/4 inch, that's pretty darn good. I'm not sure if there is a better 3 3/4 inch Dracula than this one. I think this takes the cake. This is a pretty good Dracula. And you see that he has Bela Lugosi on the card. Now, they fixed him a little with some fangs here that Bela didn't really have. But that's Bela, obviously. That's Bela Lugosi. And the toy itself is also Bela Lugosi. If we look at the toy itself, that head is Bela. That is a cute little Bela Lugosi. I mean, they really did a good job, given the format, of capturing some of Bela's essence. They probably couldn't. It's probably not officially Bela, and maybe they couldn't make it look too much like Bela, but it looks like Bela to me. The widow's peak is more exaggerated than what Bela had, but other than that, it does look like Bela. And he's got his medallion and his white tuxedo vest and his bow tie and his black tuxedo jacket and all those details. He's got the cape like the Star Wars figures have, the vinyl cape with the holes for the arms to go through, rather than a cape that would be just all behind him, which is more like what Dracula would really have. But interestingly, though, he has this red lining, which is fancier than what any Star Wars figure did. You would have thought they would just make it black on both sides, but no, they gave it a red lining, like Dracula. And his collar doesn't bend over like Darth Vader or something like that. No, his collar sticks up, and it's got that pointy shape that you expect from a Dracula collar. And the collar is red on the side facing you and black on the back, like it should be. Remember with the MC Dracula, I noted how odd that was, that the collar was black on this side and red on the back. Kind of strange for Dracula. So that's fresh in my mind, having just done that episode a couple weeks ago. He's a really nice Dracula. I think he's the best 3 3/4 inch Dracula ever made. He's one of the best Draculas ever made. I mean, he's really good. I think there's the Migo Bela, whether you like the silver or the red lining, either way. The Migo from just the last couple of years, the Migo Bela Lugosi Dracula. And then there's this. I think those are two of the best Bela Draculas of all time. Two of the only, really. There haven't been that many Draculas with a Bela likeness. And this isn't, I don't think the sculpt is officially supposed to be Bela, but it certainly looks like Bela to me. And obviously the card art is Bela. Now, the copyright. One thing I also neglected to say with the big Remco Monsters from the last episode, maybe I did say and I forgot, I don't know, but the Dracula was not licensed apparently by Universal. They licensed the other characters, but Dracula didn't have a Universal license. He was excluded. So I don't think they took a Universal license for that Dracula, which maybe is why they used Count Yorga art on the box and made it real generic looking on the face. But this one, this is an authentic posable figure from Universal's famous MiniMonsters collection. Universal City Studios, '*S, Dracula, TM. Yep, Universal Film Monsters, a trademark of and licensed by Universal Studios, Universal City Studios, 1980. Huh. So he's licensed by Universal. And the card art is Bela for sure. And I say the sculpt, whether it was officially supposed to be or not, the sculpt's Bela. So it's a cute little Bela. Little Bela Dracula. You don't see that very often. To see a Bela-style Dracula in a Universal Monsters set is kind of a rare thing because of all the issues between the Lugosi estate and Universal Studios, all the feuding that has taken place between the two of them. Usually, if you have a Bela Lugosi Dracula, it's a standalone toy that's not officially part of a bigger set. Or if you have a Universal set with a Dracula, it's not Bela. One exception would be the sideshow figures, the 8-inch and the 12-inch. That was a big deal if they got the Bela Lugosi license and were able to use it in conjunction with the Universal Studios license. It wasn't like Broadway Bela, it was Universal Dracula played by Bela Lugosi. And that doesn't happen very often, that a licensor, a company is able to get a license for Dracula that's Universal and Bela Lugosi. And Remco didn't get a Lugosi license, it doesn't look like it, but they just did it anyway. They put Bela on the card, and they put, to me anyway, the sculpt looks like Bela Lugosi. Okay, so here is the Phantom of the Opera. This is the last one. And I haven't handled these, I'm sure, in 20 years. This is the first time they've been out of these bags. But I didn't want to photograph them through the bag. So again, his bubble is yellowing, but it's not really yellow in front of the toy. It's yellow where the glue is. This is a glow-in-the-dark version. Standard glow, not a starburst. So here he is. Phantom of the Opera. And you can see he's got Lon Chaney Sr. photo on the card from the silent Universal Studios Phantom of the Opera. A real movie still, not a painting or an artist's interpretation. And the figure itself is definitely Lon Chaney Sr. as the Phantom. And that just strikes me how unique this little set is in terms of integrity. It just oozes integrity. Everything about it is so proper and official. All 6 characters are all Universal licensed. They're all actor likenesses, even in this format. You could argue, is Frankie Karloff or is he Glenn Strange? I can't quite tell, but he's definitely Universal Frankenstein. And here is Universal Phantom of the Opera, Lon Chaney Sr. with a great movie still, a famous image from the film on the card. Universal City Studios Phantom of the Opera. It says Phantom in big letters, but it does in small print underneath say of the opera. Here he is. He's got the same kind of vinyl cape as Dracula. Looks like the die cut pattern is the same, but unlike Dracula, this Phantom has a black cape on both sides. He does not have a red lining. His cape is black, front and back, inside and outside. So they could have easily given them both the same cape and it would have been just fine. No one would have cared. But they went the extra step to be character accurate and give Bela, Dracula, the red lining, and then not do that with the Phantom, because the Phantom doesn't have red lining. If you're going to be proper about the way he looks, he doesn't have red lining on his cape. So that's interesting that they took that care to make it different, to put that detail in both those figures. It's definitely, it's hard to tell with the naked eye, it's so small, but it's definitely the Phantom of the Opera as seen in that movie. It's got a nice, accurate sculpt, at least as much as they could do with this in this size. Yeah, when I look at him under a magnifying glass, he looks even better. Really, you could blow this sculpt up almost and use it for an 8-inch figure and it would probably look just fine. It's really good. And then they sculpted the clasps for his cape, like the little cord with the ends hanging down. It's sculpted onto his chest. It's got little details like that. And his hands are going like this. Like it's Frankenstein's like this. His are going like this. So he could be like, oh, like he's singing or conducting or trying to get Christine Daae to sing. Oh, his palms up. So they thought of a lot. But they put a lot of care into these toys. They're not slapdash, that's for sure. And also they don't have that licensing department approval curse where all of the soul is just stamped out of them, where they're so standardized and go through so many levels of approval and just all the individuality is just squeezed out. They've got a personality. They look correct. They look like the movie characters. They look like the actors. And they have personality. and they're this big. So it's really an impressive line in many ways, that you can capture the characters to this degree in this size. Now, and frankly, I gave a lot of praise to the reaction line, and it deserves it. But as I said in that video, those cards are half the reason to buy that line. The card art really sells that line. These, they also have very nice card art for sure, but the toys also stand on their own. The toys are great. The toys are great on their own. Even if the card art were not so wonderful, the toys would work. But the card art is also great. And it's unique. This style of card art it's weird. It doesn't have that gaudy 60s, 70s, spooky, scary kind of Famous Monsters, Basil Gogos, James Bama, Aurora, sort of. It doesn't have that aesthetic. It's kind of sparse and minimalist. It's black and white. It just has the face of the monster filling the card. It has that very business-like font for the name of the monster. Everything is just, it's almost corporate looking. It's like we're selling machine parts or something. It's a different way to do it. And if you look at other Remco 80s toys, like their Masters of the Universe knockoff lines, the Warrior Beasts or Conan or Pirates of the Galaxies, they don't have that style. No way. Very different style. The card art is very, very different. And I don't know. I mean, so Remco also made, obviously, those big figures, but they also made a set called Monsters at Home, which we will look at very soon. And some other things for this Universal Monsters line, some other ancillary products, and they all had that same style of artwork and fonts, the same kind of sans serif, very blunt, business-like fonts. So that was an aesthetic choice to do it that way. It's really interesting. I wonder where that came from. I wonder what the cultural context is for that. It's not like Star Wars. That's not the way the Star Wars cards are. So I don't know where that came from, why it was done that way, but it makes them unique, gives them their own personality. They're not quite like anything else. They're better than the Reaction Super 7 line. Better toys. Are they better cards? I think it could be argued. I really like the Super 7, the current line with those paintings. I really like those paintings. But there's something to be said for these much more pared down, minimalist kind of black and white photo cards. So I don't know. I don't know if they're better. They're not worse. And the toys are better. These toys are better than the Reaction line. Even though, in some ways, the Reaction line, with some characters like the Creature, maybe it captures the letter of the likeness better. I think these, in general, capture the characters better. And that's something I wanted to mention if I have time. I think I do. That one thing I've noticed about some of these toys, they don't just capture the likeness, they capture the character. They capture the monster, they capture whatever it is, the essence of it. And I think there are some toys that are really good at capturing the detail of the likeness or the actor or the details of whatever the character looks like, but they don't capture the character. And you can have two toys, and one looks kind of funky and clunky and crude, and another one looks very serious and detailed and screen accurate, and yet the clunky one captures the character, and the more detailed one does not. The more detailed one misses it somehow, kind of like a Madame Tussauds wax figure. sometimes they just don't capture the person. They look like them. They got like the details in a kind of a superficial way are correct, but they just don't capture whoever it's supposed to be. And it's not whether it looks real or doesn't look real. There's an essence that's missing. And I think some of these older toys capture that essence. They capture the character, even if they don't capture the details. Whereas some of these later toys, 90s and 2000s, capture the details, but they don't always capture the character. And it's nice when you have both. And I think, given the format, this 3 3/4 inch format, I think this line does both. It captures the character and captures the likeness. Only exception being the creature, his head is kind of stylized. But the rest of them, I think, are very accurate, given the format. They're very accurate to the screen image of what these characters are supposed to look like. Okay, that's it for the Remco MiniMonsters. They also made a Monsterizer and a play case. I don't have those. I talked last time about the Monsterizer. I don't like the Monsterizer. Never owned a Monsterizer. Not as a kid, not as an adult. Probably never will own a Monsterizer. Play case is something I'm surprised I don't have. But, so I might have that one of these days. But I don't have one right now to show you. It's like a vinyl play case. Looks like a haunted house. You open it up. It's got like a little laboratory inside. It's cool. If I had one, I'd show it to you. But I don't have one. But that's, so there was a little Monsterizer and there was a play case that came with that line. And all of the characters were made non-glow, then glow with the starburst design. So they all, 6 characters, they all went through those 3 stages. Okay, so that's it. We're going to have a little minisode talking about the monsters at home. We're going to see those, not in this episode. We'll have a short little episode where we talk about monsters at home. If you don't know what those are, then watch the episode and you'll find out. And then after that, we'll have our big season finale. We'll have the mini-sode about monsters at home, and then the glorious season finale of Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. I hope you enjoyed this look at the Remco MiniMonsters. Until next time, remember, he who dies with the most toys was probably wearing a green jacket. Good night.